This video's aim is to show you how to make a question mandatory in the WASH KAP mobile template for your local needs. So here you see an example of mandatory question because it has a little red asterisk, which means that if you try and pass it, it won't let you until you've actually ticked one of the answers. So to be able to specify this, you will see that in the WASH KAP mobile template XLS forms, there's a column called required, and you also see the required message column that has the message that shows up if you try and pass the question. And if there is written yes or true in the line associated to your variable, it means that that question will be mandatory. So the date of interview, the camp, all of these are mandatory questions. How many people slept in this house? Of course, all of the questions related to one of the key indicators is mandatory. Otherwise, if it's not filled, it's not possible to calculate that indicator. So imagine I wanted to make the question on what's the principal source of drinking water if other, please specify mandatory. All I would need to do is specify yes, and then I can also copy the associated message, and this question will now become mandatory. This means that if it appears, it will be mandatory. Therefore, if they have ticked other at the question, what is principal source of drinking water, and therefore if other, please specify appears, they will have to fill it in to be able to go further. So all of the questions where there is nothing here in the required column can be made mandatory if you wish. However, you will not want to make mandatory any type of question. Let me just hide all of the existing mandatory questions. So we see there are different types of questions. A note question, which is an information that appears that requires no action by the enumerator, it just shows, should never be mandatory, because otherwise the enumerator would not be able to pass the question as the note would actually block him. So all note type questions, and also all of these aspects that are more grouping questions to be able to have a title on a number of questions should never be made mandatory, because it doesn't make any sense as they're not real questions. Another question that should never be made mandatory is the GPS coordinate. If you make the GPS coordinate mandatory and there is an issue with the device for whatever reason, you will block your enumerator and he will never be able to send his form, his submission, back to the server. So you should rather encourage them to take the GPS as much as possible, but not by making it mandatory in the app. As a summary, to make a question mandatory in your XLS form, go to the required column and write yes for the questions you want mandatory. But before making a question mandatory, check whether it's compatible with the type of question. So a note question would not be the right question to make mandatory. And also if you're certain that enumerators will be able to fill it in all possible situations.